ننتقل الآن إلى جلسة حوارية بمشاركة أعضاء المجلس العالمي للتميز بعنوان الاتجاهات العالمية الحديثة في التميز. ويدير هذه الجلسة الدكتور هزاع النعيمي المنسق العام لبرنامج دبي للتميز الحكومي، ويشارك فيها كل من راسل لونغ رئيس تنفيذي المؤسسة الأوروبية لإدارة الجودة، كريشنان مانا مدير معهد الجودة الهند، ماتومي موديبا رئيس منتدى التميز الأفريقي. Distinguished guests, I proudly present to you Mr. Russell Long, the CEO of European Foundation for Quality Management, Mr. Krishnan Mana, Principal Counselor and Head of Business Excellence of CII Institute of Quality, Mr. Matumi Modiba, Chairman of the African Excellence Forum, in a panel discussion on global excellence trends, moderated by Dr. Hazza Al-Naimi, Coordinator General of Dubai Government Program.
السلام عليكم. صوت واضح؟ زين. It's a great pleasure to moderate this very important session with a very distinguished guest on behalf of the Executive Council of Dubai Government and Dubai Government Excellence Program. We are honored to welcome our panel for this session, who are fellow members in the Global Excellence Council here in Dubai. Distinguished guests, I proudly present again our panel, Mr. Russell, the CEO of European Foundation of Quality Management, EFQM, Mr. Krishnan, the Principal Counsel and the Head of Business Excellence in India, and Mr. Matumi, the Chairman of African Excellence Forum. And unfortunately, we missed last minute Mr. Ravi, the Director of Business Excellence Australia, due to COVID, and he couldn't make it from Dubai to Dubai from Sydney. The Global Excellence Council has a purpose, which is to define and to improve excellence, to improve the competitiveness of organizations around the world. The Global Excellence Council also have a mission, which is supporting and helping excellence awards and programs to improve their competitiveness, to help all their stakeholders around the world as well. So let's jump to the question directly. We will start with Mr. Russell. EFQM is one of the first institutions specialized in quality management around the world, and specifically in Europe. How do you keep the EFQM relevant and evolving, and what are the latest trends of excellence specifically in Europe?
Yeah, thank you for having us here. Every day is a challenge for us to find what makes us relevant. I think as organizations, excellence organizations, sometimes we can be a bit inward looking, and we really have to ask what organizations require of us. And at the end of the day, what organizations want is better information, better data, good methodologies. They want to learn from each other, and that's how we make ourselves relevant. The other thing is speed. 30 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, organizations were quite willing to put a lot of time and effort into collating data against a model, and then waiting for an assessment and waiting for the feedback. In today's world, they want that information now. They want that information in 5 weeks' time, in 6 weeks' time. If they employed a consultancy company, they would ask that consultancy company to come back to them within, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, to give them an assessment of where they might improve. We have those methodologies, we have that information, we have that data. We have 30 years of experience, and we need to make sure that we provide that data, not just qualitative information, back to them as soon as possible. And that's our biggest challenge, speed.
Thank you. Any different trends in Africa or in India, Mr. Matsumi?
Thank you. What I can share in Africa, we had to look at the models of the past in terms of how they've been applied in Africa and what value did they give to us in Africa. What we found lacking in the past is that the models have been geared around extraction as opposed to being humanistic in terms of the development of the people while we are embarking on extraction. So we did a thorough analysis and remodeled our excellent model on the basis of our humanity. You might have heard of the philosophy called Ubuntu Boto, which is the humanity aspect. We asked ourselves, what can we get out of this philosophy? Because the philosophy of Ubuntu is a state of excellence close to godliness. State of excellence, governance excellence, close to godliness. And when we analyzed it closely, we felt that there should be no better model than this, because this is a model close to godliness, where we want to model ourselves in such a way that we can do everything that is good, we can do everything that is professional, we can do everything that is excellent. So in a way, that is where our model was based, and based on our history of indigenous knowledge system, as well as the fact that people in Africa, and I'm sure even in the Middle East, we share common culture, common destiny.
Yeah, you recently announced a new model of excellence, like Arabic African model. What's the latest trend in this model?
Excuse me?
You recently announced the new model, right, of excellence and Arab framework, yeah?
Yes.
So what strengths do you have in this model?
The strength is that for the first time our model is based on three key pillars: the humanity element, the performance, which most models were more focused on performance alone. But in addition to that is the sustainability. These are the three pillars of our model, which we call the excellent trinity. Now, the humanity aspect is more guiding on how people should behave and conduct themselves, based on the philosophy, the principles, the values, the norms and standards that they need to adhere in order to be good, professional, and excellent in the way they do things.
Why did you select the Arab word to launch your model? Okay, Mr. Krishnan, any trends in Africa, in India?
Good morning, and thank you all for the opportunity. In India, primarily, if you look at since last 3 decades, the two model primarily being used is one, the EFQM. Since 1994, we have been doing the program with the CIA Exim Bank Award for Business Excellence, and the knowledge is taken from the EFQM model. We adapted that. The other model, which is the globally equally accepted, is the Baldrige. So in India, if you look at predominantly these two models are there. So by virtue of these modifications happening in these two models by the model designers, we immediately adapt those models, and thereby we ensure that in terms of the excellence practices and the programs, we are leveraging the most appropriate and most latest the trends. However, as a country, we may have maybe in terms of the cultural differences, maybe in terms of some interpretation related areas, or the key activities what is required in the country. So probably if you look at last 3 or 4 years, the key trends what we are seeing is more of the sustainability and agility resilience. If you look at how do I become more resilient organization than, of course I will look at the overall the picture, but the resilience has become one of the key aspects. And sustainability, whatever you do has to be sustainable while it is a principle of excellence. What we have seen as a trend, which probably could be true for other continents also, is that while all the leaders agree or they believe that excellence has to be driven and that's the way forward, the way they conceptualize or maybe implement may not be the same model what you may be looking at, whether EFQM or Baldrige. So they may look at their own perspectives, which is important to the stakeholders, and they may drive those, what is important to those stakeholders. So what you have seen as a major trend today is, while the holistic framework they will use as a learning or a knowledge, but what is driven more is what is more important at that time, so their prioritization. So they may not call it as a holistic excellence, the drive, but they will look at more as one particular solution and then move forward. So that's the trend we have seen in the recent times.
Thank you, thank you. Excellence is a proving approach of achieving excellence and achieving success and leading position. However, applying excellence sometimes might face difficulty and challenges. So, Mr. Russell, in Europe or in FQM, what are the most important challenges you face? Especially you're dealing with different organizations, small size, big size organizations around Europe. So what are the common challenges that we can learn from Europe?
For us, I think the biggest challenge for European organizations is that they don't believe they can learn from the outside. When we come here, every company is looking to improve, is looking to excel. They're using a range of excellence models. Organizations are not afraid of being assessed. They're not afraid of having targets. I think what you'll find is in Europe, and more so in America, there is a real pushback on being assessed and being evaluated. And I think that's the biggest challenge European organizations have, which is this ability to look at themselves and actually say, we can learn. And that is why when you come to Dubai, you see some of the world's best performing organizations, and certainly the best performing state organizations in the world. And I think Europe has got a lot to learn. So we ourselves, we have a lot of challenges in terms of dealing with multiple partners, multiple languages, multiple cultures. But the fundamental thing is, if organizations really, really want to improve and excel, they can learn a lot from coming to Dubai. And in fact, we had our event, we had an event here 2 months ago, and I invited our lead partner from Spain. They do more recognitions than any other of our partners, more training, and he'd never been to this part of the world, and he was blown away by the innovation and the advancement, and it's completely changed his mindset. And I think that's probably the biggest restriction European companies have got, which is they're focusing on their own problems internally and not willing to learn.
Very interesting. Although the organization in Europe and in the Western country are leading organization, and it's a little bit contradicting of being leading, and at the same time they're not willing to learn. So what do you think? Why the reason the resistance of learning? I've been recently in Norway, and I've seen a lot of organizations, they're willing to learn, but they need the platform.
You're absolutely right. They want to learn, but they're scared of actually being measured. Mm-hmm. We have too much of a cult of short-term rewards and CEOs who are needing to turn around companies or needing to improve results in the short term. And whilst, of course, they want to learn, but what they don't like is being assessed. CEOs are in a very strong position. They want to turn around companies. They go to their boards and they tell them what they want to hear. And it's a real challenge, I think, for European companies and certainly American companies, where we work with BMW around the world, And they will not, they use the EFCO model and many other models around the world, but in the States, where they have their biggest assembly plant, the biggest factory, they will not use a model because they believe they are better than that.
Thank you. I think going back to India, before we go to Africa, specifically looking at the size of India and the population, it's a big challenge. How do you really, face such, a huge organization or a huge, country with a huge population?
If you look at Indian the context, the first challenge could be, of course, the geographical and the language. If you look at a larger organization, the different units, different plants will be at different location where they speak different languages, not necessarily the same language as a primary thing. However, one advantage probably in India also has got mostly the business, more or less it is on English. So the communication is not that a challenge. However, cultural challenges are still there. The other issue which primarily we are seeing is, I will just maybe summarize in three. The first is basically knowledge versus action. While when you look at the excellence models, it all gives you a great amount of knowledge. And it's the best practices collected over a period of time from different geographies and put it in an appropriate way. However, the challenge comes, how do we take action on these? It may give some information, but how do you take action? So, absence of a translation of these knowledge into an action takes little resistance from the organizations to accept that, yes, this is a solution. So we look at whenever there is a structured process, unfortunately, if you look at none of the excellence models, we cannot put it in a structured process because it all talks about where are you today and what is the immediate priorities you need to address, and then how do you make it stronger. So thereby we are seeing some challenges there in terms of communicating and accepting. The other challenge is primarily on short-term versus long-term. So how do we look at, most of the cases the business runs, when you look at the uncertainties, challenges, and the future is probably 3 months, quarter to quarter, we call it as 3 months to 3 months, with the business result they look at. And the long-term aspirations of an organization, very difficult for them to continuously push when it comes to the long-term aspirations or excellence or the vision, purpose, while that's taking the longer duration and the path, but the shorter the challenges or the objectives will become the center stage. Third is primarily the acceptance of the models as the solution. Why this model? Especially when you look at the other practices, which is subset of the excellence where it is taking center stage. For example, we hear a lot from circular economy, sustainability, and ESG, the environment, social, and the governance. We also talk a lot about SDG goals alignment, agility, resilience. So and more of the Industry 4.0 digitization. When an industry leader, CEO or the leadership looks at these models, they probably see not very clearly as they feel it is focused. It is, in reality it is there, but they feel it is not as focused as they feel. Thereby, it takes little challenges, but we have seen as a recent trend is, people are more adapting this and started practicing it, maybe participating in a program, maybe still, maybe may not be as high.
So time is the solution, you said, time to overcome such challenges.
Yes.
In India. In Africa, being the last founding member joining the Global Excellence Council, so do you find it difficult to, to deal with organizations there in Africa?
Difficulty, I think, in terms of how they've been viewing this model. But what we are bringing to the fore is the fact that excellence must be seen as a way of life. Excellence should be seen as a culture that you adopt in order to do what you have to do on a daily basis. I just want to give an example, but it also depends on the leadership itself in terms of how it drives the organization, how it guides people to follow on that culture. I'll give an example here in Dubai. The ruler knew what he wanted this country to be like. He rallied everybody to follow suit. That's why everywhere and anywhere you walk, you see excellence. I recently visited Kenya and Rwanda during the Commonwealth conference. Rwanda, a small country in the middle of Africa. Everywhere I walked, even in the slum, I could not see a little piece of paper on the ground because the leader drove the people towards that line of thinking. So excellence is a way of life. And each and every organization has to choose where they want to lead in excellence and how they want to be seen to be that excellent organization, and make that choice and rally all the resources, all the people towards that. And eventually, it becomes a culture. Everybody starts to think and act and behave in that way, as opposed to being everything to everybody, because it can be costly. That's why organizations sometimes they miss the point of understanding what excellence is all about.
Thank you. Very interesting. Building on what you just mentioned, it's sustainability or excellence is a way of life. So if we move to the sustainability, and how can we ensure, Mr. Russell, the sustainability of excellence in the organization in general? What do you do in Europe to make sure that the organization will really leave the excellence as a way of life rather than just, a requirement they need to apply?
Yeah, I think it's a very big challenge for organizations. I think it has to be part of the culture, part of the purpose of the organization. It's not easy if we need to deal with supply chain issues, if we need to deal with COVID, if we've got other disruptions. It's very difficult to focus on long-term sustainability. And it takes a lot of very, very powerful and good leaders to balance short-term needs and long-term sustainability. And I think, the best performing organizations do that well. It's not always easy. Your industry might be in complete disruption, but I think it's one of the hardest things to make really good habits, good practices sustainable for the long term.
We will be sharing in our meeting on Thursday our best practices and things that we've done to make sure the excellence is sustainable. And I will share with you very quickly what we've done in Dubai. We recently introduced the excellence continuous assessment, or excellence 24/7. So to ensure the sustainability of assessment, of improvement, rather than assessing the organization once every 2 years, once every years, and then the organization gets ready for it. So we are now in a pilot stage. We have 3 entities, but hopefully we will roll it out. We've seen very good results to share with the whole organization very soon in Dubai. Would love to see what's in India. How do you ensure the sustainability within your organization?
Okay. First, as you said, in the year of 2014, till probably 14, we were having only the Excellence Award as a program while driving this program. In 2014, we found that is not enough. And to ensure that this 24/7 or 365 days movement, we have started, we call it as maturity assessment program, where any time during the year they can go through the assessment process, and action-based feedback will be there, and at the end of the action-based feedback, we also will do a prioritization and the roadmap preparation for how do we take this journey forward. The other challenge, what probably it is true for everybody, is to drive this continuously program. Every organization drives excellence, irrespective of whatever the leadership is. But the difference could be what is the definition of excellence for them between the framework and the other aspects what they feel is important. So one important thing is committed and involved leadership with a longer duration which is there for their actions. If it is 2-year, 3-year appointment, it is very difficult for them to start something. And then, so we have seen a trend where the leadership is relatively having a longevity. We have seen these programs are driven far better and efficient than the others. Whereas whenever leader changes, because of the boardroom briefing, the priority by which he has brought in, apparently the priority may appear to be changing, so that the excellence program, whether it is the award program or otherwise, may take a little backseat, and they will drive excellence on those priorities what the board and the stakeholder feels immediately to be attended. So that's the two major issues we have seen: the longevity of those leaders and their not only commitment. So there is a difference between commitment and involvement. So it's both are important to drive the sustainability.
Thank you. Building again of what you've mentioned, Mr. Matumi, in the previous questions, leadership is a very important factor. And I think in Dubai and in the UAE, leadership has been very vital role, in sustaining excellence within the organization. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid is the drive behind excellence within Dubai and within the UAE. Any other practices in Africa?
Yes. I think some of the practices in Africa, it's in terms of understanding the technical aspects that goes with it. Because the whole notion of excellence as well has to be quantified. For instance, our philosophy in the past has been taken as a socialistic, humanistic, as if there's no science behind it. We have proven that science goes hand in hand with our modeling. We have developed a tool that is scientifically proven that can assess organization, that which we call SPEAR, which gather the data and prove that which we have set in terms of the humanity requirements, how this will look like in a scientific way. So that's one of the supporting mechanism that we have built into the process. And organizations in Africa, they are beginning to have a taste and get a sense out of the two. Currently, we have done an assessment with almost 7 of the organizations that my colleague there has worked on, the Housing Development Agency, and also the tax organization and others, which now they are beginning to see sense out of it, because it builds the performance element of individuals and the organization within the same framework, which you can touch and feel without having to feel that this is a foreign to what is being done in the organization.
Thank you. The Global Excellence Council has been established in 2001, and we have 12 international members representing all the world. And Mr. Russell, you've been one of the founding members since the beginning in 2010. So how you really utilize your membership of such international platform to really promote excellence around Europe or around the world? We know you started in the Middle East or in Dubai in 2003 or 2004. So how do you keep this going?
How do we keep international? The first thing is, I think the Global Excellence Council more. I think, we have between us phenomenal methodology, amazing data, which we can give back to organizations, which I think we do well enough. How do we keep ourselves focused internationally? I have to say, it's a challenge. We have to be multilingual. We have to deal with Colombia. We have to deal with, developing parts of Europe. We work in China, and obviously here in the Middle East. And as an organization, we're not for profit, so we technically are we don't proactively go out for sales and selling. We try and market our services for people to come to us. We have to keep proving our value, and the value we have is 50,000 companies have been assessed in 30 years, and we have amazing data, and we're just now really crunching through that data, and we're beginning to be able to offer organizations actual data to prove things that we may have thought were true or were anecdotally proven. Maybe I saw some interesting data yesterday where we've looked at all the assessments we've done in the last 2 years, and we found that people in organizations, employees and teams, are really positive about purpose, values, strategy, but they're absolutely terrified about the future. They're absolutely terrified about predicting whether they've got a job, whether the organization's got a job. They find transformation difficult, and they find change difficult. Now, I guess we knew that, but a lot of talk has been focusing on values and purpose recently, and really we need to help people through the change. So there's that sort of data that we're beginning to be able to really give to organizations, and I think that's what's going to keep us relevant internationally.
50,000 organizations for the last 20, 25,
30 years.
30 years, wow. It's huge. So this is by itself, it's really promoting excellence, And we've learned actually from the Global Excellence Council, from different members for the last few years being part of this, international platform. We would love to know India and then Africa. This is the last question, just not to keep the audience waiting. So how do you promote it? How do you really use this platform?
The way we look at is, one is the platforms will give you an opportunity to understand what's the trend going on in the different parts of the globe, so that you don't have to reinvent or search, because it's easy for us to get the information. And we can leverage on those information already somebody worked on and collected. That way the platform is helping each other to look at what are the best practices, then thereby implement that in the respective programs. This also gives you another opportunity. For example, benchmarking, if you look at, it's an important aspect, not only on the program, but in the whole different practices. So these reach can also help these organizations to demonstrate, organize some best practice events, invite these speakers. So for example, the way we leverage is, some of the programs where we focus on promoting excellence and best practices, we invite some of the Global Excellence Council members to come and present and share what the experience, for example, 2 years back where you had presented. So that's an opportunity which would not have been there otherwise. So because very difficult to get an acceptance and know what it is. While it is important to have if you look at it in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, because of the technology and other things, connecting is easy. Thereby, now if you look at, there is much more possibilities to leverage this platform than in the past, because earlier mostly it was physical or maybe exchange of some mails. Whereas now, like a platform like this can go live, where you can have much more possibilities to leverage and can be quicker also. That's the opportunity we see.
Sir Matsumi?
The way to sell it, as I've indicated in our case, is excellence is a way of life. Wherever you are, talk excellence. Wherever you are, do excellence. You know, at the moment, I'm busy doing a PhD on governance excellence to showcase what we are talking about broader than just on an organizational sense. But my colleague, my CEO, Ed, you will see him on LinkedIn almost every night, selling the ideas and talking nothing else excellence. In all organizations, we want to have a space so that we can share, we can talk excellence. Because we need, the way to change the world is when each and every one of us do and talk excellence, nothing else. Others, those who don't understand it, they may see it in practice and begin to emulate. And that's the way in Africa we see that we can change ourselves, we can change the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. We'd like to thank our panel for making the time and traveling all the way from Africa, from India, from Europe, from Belgium. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again in signing the declaration. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.